Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Strain. And over the past year, I've gotten through the 4 seasons of this show from FX, created by Chuck Hogan and Guillermo del Toro. And obviously Guillermo del Toro has his hands in a lot of different projects at any given time. He probably has more projects that haven't been finished than he actually has projects that have been finished. But this show definitely has the feel and the personality and the creativity of his work. And you can definitely see this show being kind of a sequel to his work on like Blade 2, where a lot of the Strigoi, these vampires controlled by the Master, have a lot of similarities to how they portray some of the vampires in that, especially Novak, who's that like half-breed vampire. And the show has great production design, an eerie look to it, a specific tint that makes it look unique to a Guillermo del Toro project, and the creativity when it comes to the effects and how they portray everything is fantastic. The show nails that perfectly. You think about the structure of the show. There's 4 seasons, and you can really define this show into 3 acts. The first season is the setup. The pilot is great. It's a hook, it's mysterious, and grabs your attention, and really sets the stage for this first season to go through, create some great characters, set the groundwork, and give us some stakes. And that's a fantastic first act to the show. The second 2 seasons, where they expand, they get a bigger perspective on things. You see a lot of different expansions in characters and introducing of new characters. It feels like those 2 seasons are drawn out and kind of spins its wheels at times, where you're kind of hitting on the same ideas in both Season 2 and Season 3, and you don't really progress anywhere. You introduce certain aspects of the show that feel like they're getting somewhere, and then they recycle basically the same ideas in the 3rd season from the 2nd season. And I think that's why so many people had trouble getting through that 3rd season, and there's just drop in quality, because it was just kind of sitting on what the 2nd season did, building off of it and doing the same thing. But this last season that I just finished is fantastic. It's a fully realized apocalypse of vampires, and where nuclear war has created an environment where they could be out all the time. And it's terrifying, and it creates this intriguing world of, it has some of those ideas where like Blade Trinity went in terms of what vampires would do with humans if they took over on a large scale, and challenges you with those kinds of ideas. And it really built up to a satisfying finale that brought a lot of stuff together. Throughout the show, they do a great job of building the mystery and building the mythos of these vampires and the Master. It really sets the groundwork with the backstory of, you have Abraham Cetrakian, who's this older gentleman who runs a pawn shop who's been hunting these vampires since he was a victim of the Holocaust. And he has this kind of mirrored relationship with Eichhorst, who is a vampire who worked with the Nazis. And seeing their relationship build over the course of the series with flashbacks and stuff like that was one of the best aspects of the show, building that mythos. And then you see where you have this other character who's introduced, Mr. Quinlan, who's a child of the Master. He's a hybrid, and you see his backstory, especially in the last season, that really builds up those characters. And though they're the characters that really bring like the backstory and the history into the present time, because this is a present setting. It's all set in New York for the most part, except for aspects of last season. And you really see the city become a war zone with these vampires. And you have some great characters, and there's some aspects that don't really work. There's one particular aspect, because you have Dr. Goodweather, played by Corey Stoll, who is the star of the show and does a fantastic job. The actor who plays his son, who becomes increasingly more important and is a big part of the last season, is really iffy. And I didn't believe any of his acting, and it made it hard to enjoy some of the aspects and more emotional aspects of that father-son relationship. Especially in this last season, that's probably the weakest part. But with the other characters, you have some great characters. Like Kevin Durant does his best work as Fett, who's this exterminator who gets a call to action because he knows what he's doing. Dr. Goodweather is, and like watching this in 2020 was very interesting, is epidemiologist. He looks at viruses and outbreaks. He has his call to action. You have Mr. Fett, who's does like kills vermin, rats, and exterminates. That's his call to action. And you have these different characters that are brought in, and you have characters like Ruta Genmentas' Dutch, who's a great addition in some of the later seasons, and she really develops into a badass character. And then one of the more intriguing aspects of the show is Jonathan Hyde's character, who is Palmer, who's this rich man who's involved because he has reasons to want to see deeper into this power of these vampires because he wants to live forever. And you see his backstory, you see these aspects that push him to that place. And that's why he's a complex villain. And this idea of the master as he can switch into different bodies is used for an intriguing building of tension because from season to season he might be in different forms. And that creates some intriguing conflicts and relationships as the series went on. The core of it, who's really the coolest character in the show, is David Bradley's Cetrakian, and he does an amazing job. And in this last season, you really get to see some of these characters come into their own and get some great send-offs or really great resolutions to their arcs. And in general, this was a really awesome show. Those middle seasons, the second and third one, are a bit of a drop because it felt like it didn't have the necessary urgency or focus as that first season of setting up and that last season of bringing a finale together. But in general, I think The Strain is a really cool show to check out. It's all on Hulu right now. It's an FX show. So go check out The Strain. But those are my thoughts on Guillermo del Toro's The Strain. Let me know what you think. Let's talk some TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.